Legend has it that a squirrel could scurry from Maine to Georgia on the branches of American chestnut trees. That was until the early 1900s when an airborne bark blight nearly wiped out the entire population. Today we'll meet a group dedicated to bringing the American chestnut back to its past glory. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Keith Silva, in for Amy Finley. Picture this: July 1945. Los Angeles, California, is experiencing a record heat wave. The singer, Mel Torme, the Velvet Fog himself, visits his songwriting partner, Robert Wells, at his home, and on the piano he finds a poem containing this iconic opening line: "Chestnuts roasting on an open fire." In his biography, Torme recounts that the Christmas song took about 45 minutes to write. Wells's line about chestnuts came from his childhood growing up in Boston, where street vendors would sell roasted chestnuts in paper cones during the holidays. While the Christmas song is perhaps the most Christmassy of all Christmas songs, it's right there in the title, the history and agricultural importance of the chestnut dwarfs even Torme and Wells's masterpiece. And to tell us all about the chestnut is the New England Regional Science Coordinator of the American Chestnut Foundation, Deni Ranguelova. Welcome.
Thanks, Keith. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you. Deni and I first met a few years ago when I was reporting on the research of the American Chestnut Foundation at the UVM Horticultural Research and Education Center. Deni took me under her wing and showed me how to properly pollinate a chestnut blossom. Deni, talk about the American Chestnut Foundation. There's more to it than roasting and open fires, I assume.
Yes, we do it in ovens nowadays.
Okay, ovens. All right, there's the change.
We are a science-based nonprofit, and our goal is to bring the American chestnut back to its native range.
So I mentioned the bark blight, but go into a little bit more about that. What happened to the trees? Wiped out sounds like it was bad.
Yes. So in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the blight, Cryphonectria parasitica, came over from China or the general Asia region. They think that it was likely transported on some pallet wood, because back then they didn't know about the importance of treating things like that and how you shouldn't transport things across different ecosystems all willy-nilly. And it was first officially named and discovered in Bronx in 1904.
Okay.
And from there, it just spread outwards over the course of a few decades. And by the 1950s, 1960s, it had obliterated the entire range of the American chestnut.
Wow. A blight is not natural selection, so why bring these trees back? Something came along and got rid of them. Why bring them back? Why does the American Chestnut Foundation exist to bring these trees back?
Very good question. So there's kind of two aspects of that. From the scientific and ecological perspective, this was a keystone species in the Northeast woods, right? There's a lot of animals that relied on them. Native Americans use them as well. And it's just an incredible tree in our forests, or used to be in our forests.
Because these trees they provided food. Yep. They provided animals which would be attracted to the food.
They provided shelter for things like bears and porcupines. But yeah, like you said, so many different animals eat the nuts. They're very tasty. So bears, porcupines, deer, all kinds of birds. The squirrels and chipmunks really love them, and they still remember. We still have to fight them for the nuts. We have to compete a little bit. So that is on the ecological perspective. It would be really great to restore that to the native range, because when they were wiped out, oak species kind of filled that gap in the ecological pyramid. But it's not great to rely on a single species for a lot of those things. Right. So in the name of ecological diversity and things like that, it would be nice to have that tree back.
Well, let's talk about how you're doing that. So how are you doing that? Is it crosses? Is it hybridization? How's it happening?
Yes. So we are crossing American chestnuts with Chinese chestnuts, and our whole goal is to take the more desirable traits in a forest setting from the American chestnut and also retain that resistance to the blight from the Chinese chestnuts, because Chinese chestnuts and Japanese chestnuts evolved along with the blight, so it doesn't kill them. They might get infected a little bit, but they fight it off. And the American chestnuts did not evolve with the blight, so it just fully wipes them out. So we're kind of hoping to bring those two together because they are very different species, and a lot of people will ask, why don't you just put the Chinese chestnuts in the forest? They are not a good forest tree. They have been selectively bred for like an orchard setting, so they're a lot shorter, they're a lot bushier because they were meant for food, whereas in our ecosystems, the American chestnuts reach the canopy.
Right. So how's it going? How are all the crosses and all the science going? Have you been able to repopulate the American chestnut yet, or are you close?
So that kind of depends on if you're an optimist or a pessimist.
Okay, all right, we're taking it there. All right.
So we have been in existence since the 80s, and back then, when the scientists came up with the plan of crossbreeding these two trees, they had this idea of what the genes associated with blight resistance looked like. And now that we have more modern technology and we have been able to map the genetic sequence of the two trees, we know that it's a lot more complicated than we initially thought. So we're still working on it, but with our new science plan, we are selectively we're selectively choosing each single parent for each single cross that we make based on those traits. And our plan is called recurrent genomic selection.
Okay.
So it's recurrent. We genotype all of our trees. We get our samples sent to this fancy lab in Australia, and we hand pick every single parent for every single cross. So hopefully we will get close. And
hopefully.
Yeah, I think we're pretty close, but maybe we'll see it actually start to get restored in our lifetimes.
My takeaway is Mother Nature more complicated than you think. Now, Deni, in my script, I put in show and tell. So let's get to the show and tell. We didn't necessarily script this out. When we met before, when I did the story before, one of the things that I had never seen a chestnut growing on a tree before. Who has? They're not around anymore. And the thing that you got to know about this is how they grow. So I'm holding this in my hand very carefully. There are these spikes that are coming off this. These are the husks. And these are no joke. These are very sharp. This one has been dried out, so when they're green, they are like thorns, right?
Yeah.
And how do you harvest these? Carefully?
Yes. I really like to put on like 3 pairs of nitrile gloves and then gardening gloves on top of that. And then still, you might find splinters.
You might find splinters.
And
so, just so we see it, I'm going to turn it towards the camera. This is what you're after. That's the actual chestnut inside this husk.
Yes.
And this is what you're harvesting out and then running all your tests and all your crosses and things like that.
Yep.
Okay. So you talked about the Chinese chestnut, which you have one in here.
Yes.
I'm going to carefully work around the husk. So this is a Chinese chestnut, and this is the American chestnut in my left hand. So what we're looking at are the differences, and this is what we find in the stores around Christmas time, right? Mostly Japanese and Chinese chestnuts?
It kind of depends. Okay. So at the co-op, I would assume that they would source Chinese chestnuts because there are growers that grow them in America. Yep. But the bigger stores like Hannaford will sell Europeans, and those are much larger.
Much larger.
You've got a splinter already.
Oh, okay, look at that. See, the spike worked out. Thank you. Thank you for looking out for me. So there's our 2 different chestnuts. This is what you wanted me to do. This is a roasted chestnut we talked about in the opening, our pal Mel Torme. So I'm just going to open this up here. Good sound. And this is the chestnut here.
You'll have to fight for it a little bit.
Oh, you got to fight for it. All right, that's good. That's good. That's good. Nothing is not worth fighting for. So,
what do you think?
It's got a very pleasant taste.
Yeah, I think that it's reminiscent of a potato.
Okay.
I don't know if you would agree with that.
I can taste it.
Yeah.
I can taste it.
But it is a nut, but I don't think that it's similar to any other nuts that we're familiar with.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely doesn't taste like a mixed nut.
Yeah.
But different. It's good. It's sweet. So the potatoy, sweetness is there.
Yeah.
You brought something else that I wanted to show. So this is blight that is taken. So where's the blight? Is this these big fissures, these big gaps in the wood?
So this is kind of the reaction to the blight.
Okay.
This has been epoxied and the blight is definitely long gone. But the first signs that you'll notice is this like reddish bark starting to form. So it was inoculated with blight here.
Okay.
And then as it spread, this is the tree's reaction to it, is it just fully expands and explodes,
right.
and then it's not a tree anymore.
It's not a tree anymore. Yes, there were still some of the trees at the Horticultural Research Center have the blight. They're there, and that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Those are Americans.
Those are all American chestnuts. That's why they have the blight, Deni. One of the things I think is fascinating about chestnuts, beyond just the food and talking about how they were used by early settlers in this area, is the wood is rot resistant.
Yes.
So that's really good.
Yes. So back to your question about why are we saving this tree? From the timber perspective, that is really desirable because they grow really fast, they grow really straight, and their wood is rot resistant. So to this day, you can still find chestnut wood in old tobacco barns, and they used to be used for train tracks and for telephone poles. And beyond that, though, it's really the people that drive this this mission forward. So a lot of our work is done by volunteers, our amazing volunteers. It's why I took this job. They are wonderful to work with. And a lot of them tend to be retirees that just want to donate their time to a good cause. And they have all of these wonderful stories about how when they were kids and they will throw husks at each other and have fights with them, or how they would hear stories from their fathers, their grandfathers about the chestnuts and how they used to be everywhere. And there's an overwhelming amount of passion there.
Well, you're setting me up. You're setting me up perfectly, Deni, which is why I wanted to have you on. If viewers want to lend a hand to the efforts of the American Chestnut Foundation, they should go to the website, tacf.org, and there you can find out more of the work that Deni is doing and volunteer, right? There's volunteer opportunities right there.
Yes, so please volunteer with us. And then if you become a member with us, you actually will get one of these magazines a couple of times a year. And this one is actually for you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Because I wrote a story in it, so you can read it.
I'll have to read that. Well, thank you very much. Deni, thank you so much for sitting down and talking chestnuts with us. That closes the gate on another Across the Fence. I want to thank the crew behind the scenes here at WCX, Tiny Tots Aglow All, who help us make this program possible. This is Across the Fence. I'm Keith Silva. Thanks for being part of our family.